This episode is brought to you by Airbus, U.S. Space and Defense. Marine Corps Expeditionary Advanced Base operations require logistical support when and where Marines need it. The Airbus UH-72 Unmanned Logistics Connector provides proven performance and reliability alongside next-generation autonomous capability. As the Marine Corps revolutionizes warfare, the UH-72 Unmanned Logistics Connector evolves to support it. Visit AirbusUS.com to learn more. That's AirbusUS.com. We would like to thank Airbus, U.S. Space and Defense for sponsoring this episode. Hey, Scuttlebutt listeners, thank you for joining us. We are here live. I guess it's a recording, but it's a live recording of us here at Modern Day Marine. Day one, things are kicking off. We had color guards. We got mannequins, we've got displays, we've got a live fire range just down. This is extremely awesome, and we're really excited to be having retired Osprey pilot and Carl Forsling, author extraordinaire. Thanks for being here. This is awesome.
Hey, thanks. Good to be here. It's always good to come back to Modern Day Marine and see all the cool stuff that wasn't here when I was in the Marines. So, thanks for having me over.
Yeah. And so you're with Airbus, right?
Yeah, Airbus U.S. Space and Defense, which is the U.S. affiliate, does defense products for the U.S. government.
Yeah, awesome. And you're looking at unmanned logistics connectors, ways to support Force Design 2030, do the piece that our former commandant said is the pacing function, right? Like, how do we support EABO? How do we do it so that we're not putting people at risk and, skylining our forces and all that good stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the Marines are going to do what they're going to do. They obviously know how to shoot, move, and communicate, but as anyone knows, bullets don't fly without supply, and that's that's the linchpin, and without that, you fire one naval strike missile and then that battery is burnt, right?
Yeah,
so you have to keep them in the fight, both with the ordnance they need and the critical supplies, and get that from, forward bases or naval shipping to the Marines that need them. That's the key thing, and that's what we're trying to do with this.
And that's something that hits home for you because you were a tilt rotor guy. You started with 46s, right? Then moved over.
Well, yeah. Let's start from day one. So, the technology around here today wasn't around when you were around, but what was around when you were around? How did you get in the Marine Corps? What was your career like? Where did it take you? And then how did you get to Airbus?
46 is the start, right? So a lot of duct tape and prayer.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest. That was not. I hate to admit it was not my first choice. That was. But it became, as they say, you always sort of adjust, and it becomes with the thing you love, right? I graduated flight school in '98 and went over to New River to learn the CH-46, and from flying TH-57, anything just blows your mind as a first lieutenant coming out there. And the 46, it's a great aircraft, obviously a huge legacy going all the way back to Vietnam.
Yeah.
And got to do HMM 365, did 2 deployments with them. Got to do when the Eastern Europe was a big thing and Yugoslavia was imploding. We did a deployment, supporting some of the humanitarian assistance, disaster relief, peacekeeping there. So that was really exciting at the time, man. We thought we were the big deal.
That was it.
That was it.
Yeah.
90s.
Yeah, I had a buddy of mine. He did, I think it was Bosnia as an Amtracker. Like, dude, you're boots on the ground. Like, this is crazy. You're hard as woodpecker lips.
I was like the coolest dude in my TVS class. Like, you went to Macedonia and Kosovo and Albania. Holy cow! Yeah. And now it's in view of what everyone's done for the past 20 years, like, can't believe we thought that was the bomb, but it was, right? Mm-hmm. But the history of the Marine Corps is made up of that kind of thing, right? And then, then 2 years later ish, 9/11 happened, and we were again 46s, and we were told, like, you're going to New York City tomorrow, and you're going to be your ARG is going to be the hospital ship for people wounded in the Trade Center. And it took about a couple days, and our crew chiefs and the mechs worked all through the night to get the aircraft ready. We were going to fly to the boat the next day, and then we spun up the aircraft, and it was like wait. And 2 days, 2 or 3 days, we kept being ready to go each day. And then they finally figured out, like, there was no wounded there, so to speak. Because people either got out or they didn't. They didn't need a ship Navy ship offshore. And then we deployed about 2-3 weeks later. Went straight. We're supposed to do the whole Mediterranean summer cruise kind of thing,
right,
or fall cruise, and we ended up going through the ditch, and then we teamed up with the West Coast MEU and pushed into support Operation Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And that's what the 46, as great as it was, when you're trying to fly that thing from the boat to Afghanistan over the mountains, that is thing is like an old man lifting a chest of drawers.
Sure, yeah.
And, you got this thing that's called a cruise guide indicator at measure road load. It's bouncing into the red as you go. It's like, so I did that, and that was my deployment in the 46, supporting the ops in Afghanistan. And then after that, went to flight school. I was an instructor pilot there, and right around that time, as the V-22 had, in the 90s, obviously had its history, and they stood down the program for a little bit. And then when they had the first board for fleet pilots to apply again, I was like, they had a brief from the test pilot team, came up to Whiting Field to give a brief to the instructor pilots. I'm like, that thing is awesome, right? And I thought about getting out of the Marine Corps at that point. That's kind of why I went to flight school. It's like, oh, I'm going to do something cool, and get out and fly police helicopters or something. And it's like you can fly the Osprey. I'm like, okay, sold.
Yeah.
And so then I transitioned there, and it was amazing aircraft. Got to be one of the first instructors of the new generation, and helped stand up some squadrons. Became a maintenance officer for a stand-up squadron, and stood it up from scratch. And then went on with the first V-22 MEU deployment with VMM 263. So we didn't spend a whole lot of time in Afghanistan, but I got to do that same flight that I did in the 46 9 years earlier or 7 years earlier. And, the V-46, it was like just getting there was like stressful. And the V-22, we made a big deal about drilling our V-22 to Afghanistan. It was about as stressful once we got airborne as flying from like Des Moines to Chicago.
No
it was
kidding,
so chill. And for all the big deal we made about getting there, and the capability of 46, we had to barely make it over the mountains. You had to refuel a secret base in Pakistan before you made the second leg. And the V-22, you just punched it up to 18,000. You just went.
And gunned it, yeah.
A couple hours later, you're down. It was.
Where we're going, we don't need roads, right?
Yeah.
So then went back. I instructed a few more times in 46. Retired in 2015, and it's kind of weird. I thought it was going to be the Action Jacks. I think every Marine kind of thinks, okay, this is what I do, and you have an identity of, I'm a guy who does things. I'm tactical, and so when I got out, I wanted to do something like that. And I was looking at at the time they had those contracting gigs out overseas, and looked at hospitals and stuff, flying helicopters again, and I saw, okay, Baltimore police flight officer. I'm like, all right, that sounds like it's got some stuff going on there.
Yeah, busy.
So I went there, and they make me do the police academy again, so I had to learn how to shoot in different contexts. I'll tell you, the Marine Corps, standards are, I would say vastly higher than what's, the people that you meet in the civilian world as far as that. But I got to fly there for 2 years, and eventually it was great flying, but eventually you kind of come to like, you're in your 40s, like, do you really want to work till 2 a.m. and, on a Friday? It's like, okay. And then through a friend who knew someone at Bell, I ended up working at Bell doing the business side of aviation for a few years, and, working on V-22s from the other side of the table.
Okay.
And then did some foreign military sales and future vertical lift, so like stuff for FLRAA V-280 for Bell, and then just recently came over to Airbus to work on logistics connector, because it's, again, not quite the traditional aviation thing, but get to apply those same skills and that same, hopefully, knowledge and background of being in the Marines to a new problem set, and hopefully come up with some solutions.
Yeah, but because contextually, I mean, to be colloquial, like, you get it. Like, that's what you did. Like, granted, it was a manned platform, but I mean, you were the boots on the ground providing that support to ground forces, like, in the shit, right? And so now we're talking unmanned connectors, but I mean, the concept is there.
Yeah, I mean, V-22 is definitely a niche product. I love my V-22. When you want to go super far, super fast, and take guys where they need to be, or stuff where it needs to be, there's nothing like it. But at the same time, it's a very exquisite platform. It has people on it. It costs a lot to buy. It costs a lot to keep it flying. And in certain situations, that's definitely worth it. In other situations, you need to carry a thing, over, in contested area where it's dangerous. You have to do it a lot. You have to do it repetitively. That's the sort of thing where the M1 platform shines, and that's what you have to have, that balance of the high-end assets and these things that kind of refer to as making the donuts that just do what they do. And trying to find something that can do that affordably and reliably, and not doesn't break the bank, because you have you look at the scale of the problem, both in terms of like how much stuff the Marines have to carry and what the fight they're going to do is, how many missiles they're going to have to reload, how
Sure.
much stuff they're going to go through. That is a lot of stuff, and you can't spend $100 million a platform to do that anymore.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and so that's that's the intent of the UH-72 from.
Yeah, that's where we're going with it.
Yeah.
And I think there's definitely, like I said, there's a place for exquisite stuff, but I think the UH-72, it's, you always say it's such a long established aircraft because it makes it sound old, but it's like some things, are, the K-bar hasn't changed in 80 years because it's a knife, it cuts things. Yeah, the aircraft has a long heritage because it's the form that follows the function. And the 72 is literally in the millions of flight hours. If you count the BK-117 family and the H-145 family that's based on, going back to the late 60s, early 70s, gradually, progressively improving it till you get to the UH-72B, which is used by the U.S. Army. UH-72A is used by the Army Training Command, National Guard. Together, the backbone of National Guard and a substantial portion of the Army fleet. In a operational environment, they do humanitarian assistance, they do border security, work in the same sort of demanding operational environments that Marines will see overseas.
Yeah.
Rack up the flight hours, establishing the platform, and high reliability, low cost for operation, all this stuff. It's like, okay, all you have to do is take the people out. And there's a lot of features. Sometimes that's not the great solution in UAS space. Sometimes you need a purpose-built thing, but especially in the logistics role when you got an aircraft, well, it's a box that carries stuff, and you want one that carries it, one, dependably, low cost, that's proven, that you don't have any new technology that's, high technical risk. So really all you do is you make it a fly-by-wire aircraft, you connect with the autonomy piece, you connect with the Marine Corps Command and Control, and that becomes that box of stuff that carries Marines, the Marines' critical gear where they need it.
Sure, and when we're talking, expeditionary advanced basing, we're talking stand-in forces within weapons engagement zones. It seems like this platform would be uniquely suited for this because now you can take those things like you were saying, like manned piloting with these very high value niche sort of platforms like a MV-22 can now directly support infantry and delivering troops, supporting through the various ways that we do close air support with fixed and rotary wing. Vice having to commit those assets to doing logistics, and now you're running into crew rest times, you're running into, well, how do we now logistically support the MV-22,
right,
which is a whole, so the chain continues on and on. If you can supplement that with this unmanned platform, it seems like it frees up a lot more for actual combat operations.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
I think a Marine has been out in Iraq or Afghanistan knows, like, yeah, you'll frag a V-22, which costs, public figures well over $10,000 an hour to fly, to carry a pallet of water out to a FOB, right?
Which is important.
Not saying that they don't need the water.
Yeah.
It's incredibly important that they can't operate without it. But that thing should be devoted to saving those crews that time, those parts. When a part in a manned aircraft needs to be replaced, just the process of getting that part to a forward area is tough. So you want to save that asset for taking the troops to a combat area, to insertion, to critical cargo long range that demands that survivability, that exquisite platform. When you want the pallet of water, when you want that missile reload, when you want where that is, that's where the right unmanned platform can really shine.
Yeah.
Well, on top of your work with Airbus, you also are a extinguished author, published in lovely journals such as Marine Corps Gazette. What is your publication history like? What sort of articles have you written? Do you have any future plans to keep writing?
Yes and yes. So actually, probably my debut was way back in, it must have been like 2009 or 10. Back, I wrote this article at V-22 night vision training, and basically like, and the pilots, now it's like pilot geek out times, like highlight level training and low light level training. I had this whole scheme about how you could streamline this. And so that was like my first, all right. I always treat the Gazette as sort of the suggestion box on the Commandant's table.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right, I know I'm never going to get this through all the various official channels. It'll take like 3 years and it'll be obsolete when I get there. Like, all right, I'm going to write an article. It's like, this is stupid. Here's my plan to improve the world. So I forget if it was a captain or major, just sent it in there. And I did another one, and Task and Purpose actually ended up seeing that. And like, would you like to write something about the V-22? So I did that, and then eventually it's like, okay, would you write about this and that? And I sort of ended up having sort of a, I don't know, it was like a bi-weekly or monthly column with them.
Nice.
And then as I left the Marine, and then periodically, again, I was in the military. I wrote like for Proceedings once and a couple other for Gazette along the way. Again, just because I geek out like that. And then as I left the military, it's sort of like more of a, it's kept going with task and purpose, like a military security commentary kind of thing. And, when opportunities come up for like Coffee or Die was one, a couple other magazines here and there. It's like, all right, I enjoy writing. I enjoy thinking about a problem and applying, what little experience I have to what it is, and hopefully some people get something out of it.
Well, it's so cool. I mean, I think it's like it's what everybody has a take, right? Everybody has a hot take. Like you said, it comes off as complaining, but I think the unique aspect of your approach to this is the fact that you're offering solutions. It's not just a bitch sesh.
Yeah.
You've actually got some ideas and you've got ways of improving. You see where those gaps are and you've got ideas on how to fill them. I think that's extremely important to contribute. Now, obviously, shameless plug, the Gazette would be the premier place to do those things.
Yeah.
But there are so many other, sister publications and avenues. And so I think it's really great. I mean, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that you were the honorable mention in 2022 for one of the Gazette contests, the Pete Ellis Writing Contest, where you did write about sort of the synergy between manned and unmanned platforms. And, I think that the title of the article was More Than the Sum of Their Parts. And I think that really, feeds into sort of what you're doing here. And I know you being humble about your limited experience, but the experiences that you have, you're actually being able to apply that not just in a sort of a present day context, but like, where are we going? What was Force Design 2030 really doing?
Yeah, one of the cool things, I think, both the manned and unmanned piece, but also as you get into how everything has become digitally designed, and one of the things we've tried to do is keep an open systems approach with art, with the Lakota, with the unmanned product, is it allows you to mix and match things. And I think the Marine Corps used to be CS-46. It's a helicopter. It lifts people and stuff, and that's what it does because that's what it was built for, and you can't change it. Flying the V-22, did a software drop, and all of a sudden you got like 20 more knots of airspeed on it from a software drop. And you got all these other capabilities that are digitally inserted to the aircraft. And, they've got some amazing command and control stuff in there, so this aircraft can do more than just the thing it started with. And then now, you start thinking about what's the capability, not this is an aircraft that does a thing. This is a capability we want. How do we use all these different things, whether it's a aircraft delivers, this Lakota can carry a piece of cargo, but it could also carry a air-launched effect. It could carry 2,000 pounds of whatever you want out there, and that's true of a lot of things in the battle space right now. How do you connect these interconnected webs, both for logistics, in terms of stuff? How do you get from here to there via this web of different assets, but also how do you deliver, kinetic effects on things?
Yeah.
And this aircraft, it's carrying a box from here to there, but you can have sensors on there that are collecting the entire way along.
Yeah.
So all the capabilities this digital engineering, this MOSA approach gives you, even though it's a established platform, a legacy platform, you put the electronic backbone, the digital backbone on there with the right capabilities. You mix and match stuff. It's a hell of a capability, and it's true for this aircraft and true for a lot of stuff that's coming out right now.
That's awesome. Yeah. So you guys have sort of this modification thing baked into the design. What are you looking at as far as like the training and sustainment infrastructure piece? I mean, is that also evolving?
Yeah. So I mean, there's two parts to that, right? There's obviously the command and control piece, and that's sort of where it links into big Marine Corps, and that's the UAS stuff. They're very similar to what you see with the other UASs that are entering service right now. The great part about the UH-72B and the unmanned configuration, being based on an existing platform, is it draws on this one worldwide Airbus. The biggest aerospace companies in the world has a worldwide supply chain. So it's based on the H-145 platform. The part similarities go throughout the aircraft, so you draw on that. But then there's also the military establishment. So obviously, there's over 400 of these in the Army and National Guard. So they have an existing school for both pilots and maintainers, military doctrine, military maintenance procedures, all those built around the aircraft. So for the airframe itself, you follow it on this established logistics, training, infrastructure base, which is why the aircraft itself, the cost per flight hour is one of the lowest in the DoD for precisely this reason. That's goes to the other point is you leverage the commercial aspect of it.
Yeah.
You know, I always like to say in terms of aviation, for aviation guys, like when you fly from Dallas to DC, American Airlines isn't flying, spinning up 2 aircraft to make one. That's
Right.
what we do. That's what you do in aviation squadron. And commercial flights, there's some different standards, but the military has to okay, commercial world has some things that are established and they work, and one of them is making things, work reliably and sustainably because people have to make money, and you get to leverage that commercial infrastructure, and also, again, going to cost, there's a lot of scale built into there by an aircraft that's being built on multiple production lines. We have one in Mississippi. There's obviously other ones elsewhere in the world, but leveraging that commercial capacity, because again, the quantities we need of these things, when you talk about a fight against near peer, the quantities dwarf anything, most of the things we've been doing for the last 30 years in terms of aircraft procurement. So it has to be something that's ready to go and relatively affordable.
Yeah, you want to have to stand up that manufacturing production line, and then have this sort of unknown quantity, and then have to stand it down, and then have to stand it back up again. I mean, having that existing pipeline that's tried and true, obviously, it's cost effective.
Yeah, it's cost and it's risk.
Yeah.
I mean, we ever talk about anything new that's completely new, if you were to go that direction, it's like, especially in aviation, a lot of qualification process for parts, just because, when a truck stops, when the engine on a truck stops, it's like, okay, you're stuck. If the engine on an aircraft stops, you're in kind of a world of hurt. Even in unmanned, it's sort of like, what is the joke? It's like when you're on a train and it stops in the middle of tracks, and it's like, well, we got good news and bad news, right? It's like, well, the bad news is that our engines have stopped and we're stuck here on the tracks. The bad news is, or the good news is, you didn't fly in the airlines, right? It's like, dual engine failure is much worse, right? But qualification status for aviation is very high. So if you go with something that's brand new, it could take literally years before you test all these parts to the appropriate standards. Then the manufacturing for those have to be similarly certified. And you can do some policy changes, hopefully relax that. But in the end, you have a high level of reliability expected, and making something new to that standard is time intensive.
Yeah.
And when you're looking at a fight that could happen as soon as the next couple of years, you may not have the time or the ability to stomach risk. If something doesn't qualify, a new platform, you're back to square zero. Whereas hopefully going with something that's a little more established and that you're modifying to this new mission, well, then a lot of the risk has already been burned down for you, from design, manufacturing, testing, all the rest.
Yeah, I saw a lot of that when I was working with ACV, and we were looking at tractor wheeled. Obviously, as an Amtracker, to just say the W word, it's like you could lose your membership card right off the bat. But that was the issue. It's like the commercial world leveraging the commercial infrastructure. The technology for tires was so much more vast because the only people doing track were like really heavy construction people or the military. Mm-hmm. So if you weren't an M1 Abrams, or you weren't, whatever the front loader crane thing is, there's nobody really doing track technology anymore. When we start talking wheels, I mean, it was everything from mining to, heavy lift, commercial, transportation, all this stuff.
Yeah.
Leveraging and being able to lean on the commercial infrastructure was huge.
Yeah, and the commercial, there's a huge motivation for those folks to get it right, and because if it breaks, people they get charged money or they get sued. That I think the Marine Corps is doing a really great job right now of sort of opening the aperture of what's possible. It's not just we have a thing, we have a thing, we're replacing another thing. We have AAV7 and we're going to replace it with AAV8. And it's like, okay, wait a minute. We don't really need a tracked box. We need a thing that goes from the ship to the shore, carrying Marines to a combat environment. Okay, what other things could do that? How else could you accomplish it? And there's like you said, all these other things that, okay, maybe we could look at this, that, and the other and get a different solution that's faster, cheaper. We can get out to the Marines a lot quicker than the same version of the old thing, right?
Yeah. Looking at the UH-72, we talked about leveraging, sort of the commercial infrastructure, and also how the unmanned capability frees up the unique skills, sort of mission set of the MV-22, for example, to do more direct, combat support. So what do you see then as sort of the problem sets the Marine Corps is facing as we're moving into, operating almost extensively within the WES that UH-72 can then really meet?
Right. So the Marine Corps has identified some critical items of cargo that they need lifted these Marines in forward areas. You look at the whole expeditionary advanced base operations. You have these distributed units of reinforced platoons that are designed to sense and shoot the enemy. And there's again critical units of stuff they need out there, and it needs to be transported from the rear echelon up to that forward echelon, again, all weather, day or night, out to these forward areas that require minimum support. Has to be risk worthy, so you can't break the bank if one of these things gets lost.
Right.
And it has to be, not expend a lot of resources while it's out there. So whatever you're using, there's obviously different ways to fuel aircraft than there used to be, but I can't use much of it because these Marines have to operate very little support out there, and it has to be, example, manned aircraft can be very maintenance intensive. Has to be a lot less maintenance involved. So, we've approached it. Okay, there's the problem. You need to get the stuff out there, and they give certain ranges, certain cargoes. So how do we attack that problem set? And we have this manned aircraft. Again, we talked about proven literally over millions of hours of the type, progressively improved over years. Like, okay, if we do some modifications or to fit these critical cargo items out there, you make something that's okay. It's a price point that, yes, by you and my standards is fairly expensive, but in terms of military standards,
Sure.
Can be lost, can be sustained. Again, that cost per flight hour has parts available. And by the way, this type of aircraft is operating extremely small jets, both in military context when National Guard goes out in detachments, but also, again, in the civilian context, civilians don't have an entire flight line of aircraft. They have one or two, and they have a very limited stock of parts in their bin. It's not like they have a MALS.
Right.
So type of aircraft that's is comfortable working on its own, doesn't need a huge specialized maintainer base.
Right.
Really, any Marine with some very minimal additional training from the aviation side can maintain this aircraft. So you're talking about something that, it's and also has been tried and tested in some severe environments, from deserts in the American Southwest to oil and gas out in the North Sea. All these different environments proven the aircraft as a sustainable solution. And then we add things like that. I think we talked about earlier, the digital backbone. So that infrastructure by which you can insert those Marine-specific items. That's communications gear. Obviously, that includes an autonomy package. That includes specialized navigation equipment. All these things we built up, bolted on this aircraft, on this digital backbone, designed to be open. And so that as these capabilities roll out, you've got an open system approach. So if a new autonomy package comes out, we can roll that autonomy package in as it improves. When a new C2 package comes out, we can roll that in fairly seamlessly. I was sort of liking it to trying to make the aircraft not an iPhone, but you want to make it an Android.
Right,
you want it to be in your own ecosystem. Hey, if the Marine Corps, we just want to, we have the truck, we have a reliable truck, and all we want you to do is supply us the driver, or we'll give you the driver. But if you want to get a new stereo in 5 years, that's fine. That's on you. Same thing. If you want to install the radio, if you want to install a new C2, just provide that core reliable truck that's cheap to acquire, cheap to operate, can be maintained by anyone. Low fuel requirements. It takes still burns dinosaurs, but if you compare the burn rate on this aircraft, something like a V-22, which is burning 3,000 pounds an hour, the demand on your supply system in terms of keeping those FARPs and FOBs, having to refuel those, because everything you bring into fuel, it's sort of the I always call it the give a pig a pancake problem. You have like children's book. If you give a pig a pancake, you got to give them syrup. You got the whole bit. If you got to ship a transmission out to the middle of nowhere, it's not just that thing. It's the two Marines had to go with it, and it's the security for those Marines, and it's the water and the food that keeps us. So about the one thing that you bring out, you've just added so much to your logistics trail. So
is the host nation going to be willing to support all that stuff?
When we talk about hey, we're going to use electricity from the host nation. Well, if I were the adversary, the first thing I would do is make sure that host nation's electricity goes away one way or the other. Mm-hmm. So then you're back to generating electricity with what? Fossil fuels. There's a whole resource discussion. I know that obviously the S&T community is trying to find new advanced ways around it. But again, think of like the near-term solution right now is probably something that's somewhat off the shelf, like our solution. And again, there's probably a place for exotic things out in the distant timeline, but if we want to fight tonight, fight tomorrow.
But to say, do we have that kind of time for it to come online? And so as we're looking at that, then here we are, obviously modern day Marine. Like, what is that industry landscape like? And then, or what is the Yeah, what is that ecosystem that you're operating in, and where does Airbus find itself, well positioned to participate in that?
Yeah, I think it goes back to sort of what we talked about, that we have a product that's well suited. It fits the stuff the Marine Corps is asking us to fit in a reliable, package. It's affordable. I think obviously there's a lot of activity in the unmanned space, and I think there's a lot of, in certain environments on the civilian side, there's a lot of venture capital going out there to pursue it. But you look at the actual technological readiness of that, I think you've seen some of those things aren't quite panning out as quickly as we'd like them to. And again, not to say the technology won't be there eventually, but you don't necessarily want to be on the cutting edge when you have a problem that could happen, tomorrow. You want that so that technological risk is out there in some of these solutions. And obviously there are other platforms competing with us. I think you'd be sort of hard pressed to find something in this size category that fills the mission bills of the Marine Corps. I think but the other piece also has some room to grow on it. So as the exotic solutions may come one day with the warp drive fueled by unicorn
God,
juice,
please, soon.
But in the meantime, it's something that's is available soon with room to grow. And there's very few comparable platforms in the size category in traditional aircraft, and even fewer in the futuristic aircraft space out there. And that Airbus is trying to bring together that established platform and weave it into that new autonomous space. And I think we're in a good place to do that.
Yeah. Until we can make the Kessel run in 12 parsecs, right?
Exactly. I think there are people that promise a lot. And again, I'm a huge advocate of technology. I think that, again, going to commercial space, they're coming out with some great stuff. But as you say, is it Lance Corporal ready?
Yeah.
Is there, you're going to get the guy who's been up all night forklifting, and he's going to, you have a composite aircraft made of, aluminum foil and finely tuned composite. You go, take a forklift and ran it right in the side. That's going to happen. And you have to have something that's, has that history of being working in a comparable environment to what you're doing. And some of these more futuristic things, probably aren't there yet.
Yeah. Well, especially we're talking stand-in forces. I mean, if you've got a squad of Marines, out alone and unafraid, your machine gunner is also your forklift guy, who's also your generator operator, right? So.
Yeah, that goes to the point is, if you get too exotic, he might not be able to operate something of that nature. Or but the training requirements takes away from something else. You can't have a, exquisite aircraft mechanic that can only, operate on this one thing. It's like, you just need the guy who's cross-trained on this, and having something that's a little bit more proven, has established procedures, has maintenance manuals already made. You've pretty much figured out all the things that could possibly go wrong. And then you can, obviously logistically prepare for that, as opposed to something that's, brand new. You don't know in 500 flight hours, X breaks, but you don't know what X is because this thing's only been operating for a couple of years. Yeah. So those are the sort of things that, it's not quite sexy and may look like something you've seen before, but sometimes you accept risk where you need to, but not where you don't have to. And I think that's what we're trying to hit with this product.
Awesome. Carl, I know that obviously first day one, man, like you're the one-leg man in the ass-kicking contest. So I really appreciate you taking the time to sit with us and talk a little bit about yourself, what Airbus is doing with this unmanned logistics support and technology. It's really great. I guess what's next? So as we're looking and we're talking modifications, we're looking at improvement lines, what are you guys focused on here at Modern Day Marine?
Well, I think one is, we want to make sure we both educate, the Marine Corps and the supporting establishment about what we're doing here. I know that Airbus US is new to the Navy and Marine Corps space. We have very limited presence here before, but I think we're jumping in here fairly strong with a solid product. So we want to educate that. We also obviously we want to learn because, part of the thing here is learning that requirement and being ahead of the requirement, because by the time it's released, by the time it's comes out in your CDD or whatever part of your JSIDS process you're talking about, you're already late to need. Talking to Marines, getting their input, and seeing what works, what doesn't, so we can make sure we're ahead of that and able to support that Marine and get them what they need when they need it.
Awesome. Yeah, I 100% agree. What about you personally? You still going to get back into some writing? You're going to be... we'd love to see more contributions from you in the Marine Corps Gazette.
Yeah, well, I have... actually, it's funny, because I got one in proceedings last month. So I think Colonel Woodbridge say you might put in, cross-link it to the Gazette as well, which would be good. But maybe I'll see something around here that piques my interest and write a screed about that. But it's really at this stage I'll have a regular thing. You have the real job and the family and all that. But when you get something just like hits your interest the right way, it's like, okay, that's a problem. Sit down and write something about it. Definitely.
Cool. Awesome. Well, look forward to it. Thank you so much for joining us today. This was really great.
No worries. Appreciate it.
All right.
Really great to be here.
Awesome.
And, well, hold up.
Go.
Vic, we got the last question.
What is the last?
What was the best day of the Marine Corps?
Best day of the... let's see.
Yeah, that's the surpriser, the zinger.
But, I was going to... So I guess there's two options here. It's like probably one, the day I got my wings, or two, the day I retired. I'm not sure which one's best, but they're both in there. But there are definitely a lot of great memories, a lot of great people. It's hard to pick one. It's just one of those things kind of, I don't know, they like to say, it stays with you forever. And there's always a couple discrete elements, but when things are, it's like, hey, this is a time in my life where I was doing something worthwhile, and there's some instances that was, readily apparent that personal accomplishment and that group accomplishment came together, and that makes a good day. But those are the two that come up to me right now. Just you ambushed me with a surprise question.
Yeah, we love throwing that one out towards the end. Vic, you got anything else, or?
Yeah. Well, Carl, man, this has been really great. Again, I appreciate you being so generous with your time. But go out, see the floor, man. Enjoy, and best of luck to you. Best of luck to Airbus, and have a great time here at Modern Day Marine.
Thanks. Greatly appreciate it. Thanks for having me here. It's been awesome.
This episode is brought to you by the Marine Corps Association and Modern Day Marine, calling all Marines and their families. Gear up for the Modern Day Marine Expo at the Walter E. Washington Convention Center, going April 30th to May 2nd. Uncover the latest military innovations, and don't miss the exclusive Military Spouse Summit. Hear firsthand from leaders about policies impacting and supporting Marine Corps families. It's your chance to be informed and connected. Secure your spot today. Visit MarineMilitaryExpos.com for more details and to register. That's MarineMilitaryExpos.com. We would like to thank the Marine Corps Association and Modern Day Marine for sponsoring this episode. Scuttlebutt is a production of the Marine Corps Association. You have heard the voices and contributions from Major Vic Rubel, USMC retired, Nancy Litchman, William Trudy, and our guest. Ty Frazier is the editor, sound engineer, and technical producer. The Marine Corps Association is not an agency of the U.S. government. The opinions expressed in this episode are the personal views of the participants and do not reflect the official position of the United States Marine Corps, the Department of Defense, or the Marine Corps Association.